This might be the worst weekend in comedy history. Just last night we lost Dick Gregory, and today we lose another comic icon, one of the great comics of all time, inspiration to so many different comedians. One that come to mind, I believe, is Jim Carrey. Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis died today at the age of 91. When I think of Jerry Lewis, I think of black and white. I'm talking about as far as film. I think of the Dean Martin movies. I think I'm dating myself, man. Like I'm pretty sure, even though I'm only 37 years old, sometimes I think I give the impression that I'm at least 57. I guess it comes from the fact that I grew up as a child in the late 80s and early 90s, and I used to watch a lot of AMC movies. And one of the great films I used to watch back then, I love comedy. I think all of you that follow my channel know that I love comedy. And I used to love to watch the Marx Brothers on AMC and their movies. Duck Soup and A Night at the Opera, The Coconuts, Animal Crackers, Horse Feathers. But aside from the Marx Brothers, I love Martin and Lewis. Of course, when I say Martin, I'm talking about Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. And the movies they made were magical. And that's when you were introduced to a young, skinny Jerry Lewis with a gift for physical comedy. He had comedy that appealed, I think, to young people. And of course, he was known for being wildly popular in France. But as Lewis matured, his comedy changed a little bit, but he remained a very funny person. I think he'll be remembered not only for his comedy, but he'll be also remembered for his dedication to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. And it's kind of ironic that he's passing away, August 20th? And even though he no longer hosts the telethon, I don't even know if the telethon still comes on television anymore, but I remember the Jerry Lewis Labor Day telethon. I mean, it came up every year. And when I was a kid, you look forward to looking at it because you looked at I don't know, man. It's like the world was different back then, man. People will look at that show now, look at the telethon now and consider it passé and archaic. But back in the late 80s, you had people on there that were relevant and entertaining to watch. It was one of the last performances I ever saw of Sammy Davis Jr. in 1989. Matter of fact, you could hear in his voice what was then the tumor that was developing in his voice. It was, affecting his voice. But I remember every year watching this telethon. There were many who would say that Jerry Lewis was hard to get along with, that he could be mercurial, rude, whatever. Jerry Lewis was Jerry Lewis. He had a long history of health problems. It's actually kind of a miracle that he lived to be 91 years old. Interestingly, when he was only 34 years old, may have been 33 or 34 years old at the time, when he was filming Cinderfella, there was a sequence in that movie. There's a scene in that movie where he's running up the stairs, and running up the stairs at a very fast pace. I can't remember how quickly he got up the stairs, but it might have been like he got up like almost 30 stairs in like 8 seconds or something like that. And I can't remember the exact time, but when they cut for that scene, Jerry Lewis went down from suffering a minor heart attack. It was that strenuous on the system. And he had another heart attack in 1982. And I think he was touring at the time, and he did not want to have the procedure done. I remember he said it in an interview. He said, "I'm not gonna." He said, "They're gonna take your heart out and they're gonna put it out there and they're gonna open it up and they're gonna do this." He's like, "I'm not gonna allow them to do that." And he said, "The doctor said, well, if you don't do this, you're gonna be dead in 20 minutes." And Jerry Lewis said, "Where do I sign?" You know, sign up for having the surgery, but he had multiple issues with his heart. I think he had like a stent implanted in his heart in 2005 or 4 or something like that. And also, I remember in the late 1960s, like Jerry Lewis when he was younger was a very physical comic who kind of reminded you, like I said, of Jim Carrey. But he hurt his back, and I think he chipped a bone in his spinal column, and he was actually immobilized for, I think, several weeks. And because of the pain in his back, he became addicted to painkillers. And also, and later in life, he became addicted to prednisone, which is a steroid. I remember taking that when I hurt my throat a couple years ago. And you have to be very careful with prednisone because it will make you gain weight. To put into perspective how much prednisone will make you gain weight, I took it for 2 weeks. I dieted my ass off when I took that drug, right? Because I knew it would make you gain weight. So being vain as I am, I dieted like crazy. I was eating like rabbit food. I was eating roughage, man. Like I'm not trying to be gross, man, but I was shitting out green shit. Like, what the fuck is this shit? The fuck? And I still gained 4 pounds. So that was a period of time when Jerry Lewis got addicted to prednisone, and he gained so much weight, and he got ridiculed for his appearance, where he had gained so much weight, like maybe like 100 and something pounds. But ultimately, he got off that, from being addicted to prednisone, and toward the end of his life, he looked kind of like how he did when he was younger. He had lost a lot of weight, lost all that weight. But recently, he had been very ill. I remember in an interview last year, he talked about his fear of dying. And just a couple months ago, he was hospitalized for a urinary tract infection. But despite all that, man, he lived to be over 90 years old. And there's so much to say about Jerry Lewis. He had the respect of his peers, even if they didn't like him personally. They respected his talent. They respected the work that he put out there, because it's all out there to see. I remember he had a cartoon I saw on YouTube back in the 70s. He was a megastar at one point. The people out there who are younger. Of course, my favorite movies that he did were probably the Nutty Professor movie. And of course, Eddie Murphy did a sort of a remake of that, changing the dynamics a little bit in 1996, and then there was a sequel in, I think, 1998 or 99 or whatever year it was. The sequel came out, and he'll be missed. Jerry Lewis was a true legend, and I like to say, like to think that now he's meeting Dean Martin at the pearly gates, and they're a team together again. I like to think that Jerry Lewis is seeing so many of the people that he hadn't seen for so long. Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Orson Welles. He's seeing a lot of people faces that he hadn't seen for so many years. He was probably the last living link to the great old time golden age of comedy. And rest in peace, Jerry Lewis.